The creature had no name when it first emerged from the quantum rift above Kepler 442b. It didn't need one. For 3 billion years, it had consumed entire star systems, devouring civilizations that had barely learned to harness fire, and others that had mastered the manipulation of space-time itself. It was hunger incarnate, a living void that grew stronger with each world it consumed, each species it erased from existence. The Zephyrians had called it Keth Valar, before their crystalline cities turned to ash. The machine minds of Proxima Centauri had designated it as Threat Classification Omega-7 in their final transmission. The energy beings of the Andromeda Spiral had simply screamed a frequency that translated to the end of all things, before falling silent forever. But when it arrived at the edge of human space, something unprecedented happened. The humans gave it a name, and then they took it away. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the readouts that made no sense. The entity was massive, larger than Jupiter, its shifting form crackling with the stolen energy of 1,000 dead suns. Yet her crew worked with the focused calm that had become humanity's signature across the galaxy. "Size estimate?" she asked. "Roughly 200,000 kilometers in diameter, Captain," reported Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. "Mass is inconsistent. It's phasing between dimensions. Energy signature? Off the charts. It's broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't exist. Our xenolinguistics AI is having seizures trying to process the data streams." Vasquez nodded. She'd read the reports from the survivor ships, the few vessels that had escaped other systems before this thing arrived. Every account was the same. The entity would appear, demand worship or submission, and when refused, it would consume everything. Planets, stars, the very fabric of space itself. Communications. Open a channel. The bridge crew exchanged glances. No one had ever tried to talk to it before. "Channel open, Captain." "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Defiance, representing the Human Coalition. You've entered our space without permission. State your intentions." The response came as a wave of pure malevolence that crashed against their shields. When it spoke, reality bent around its words. "I am the eternal hunger. I am the silence after the last scream. I have consumed the dreams of gods and made graveyards of galaxies. You will kneel before my infinite power, or join the trillion voices that cry out in my belly." Vasquez felt the weight of those words, the psychic pressure that had broken the minds of countless beings across the cosmos. Around her, she could see her crew struggling against the entity's mental assault. But they held their positions. "Interesting introduction," she said calmly. "But you didn't answer my question. What do you want?" The creature's form rippled with confusion. This had never happened before. The small beings in their metal shell should be cowering, begging, offering their worlds in exchange for a quick death. "You dare show defiance? I have ended civilizations that spanned galactic clusters. I have drunk the light of dying universes." "So you've said," Vasquez replied, "but you still haven't told us what you want." Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's xenopsychologist, leaned forward at her station. "Captain, I'm reading massive psychological instability in its energy patterns. I think it's never encountered resistance before." The entity lashed out, sending waves of destructive force that would have shattered continents. The Defiance's shields held, barely, but Vasquez noticed something else in the attack. Desperation. "You know what I think?" she said, her voice carrying. across open channels to the entire human fleet. I think you're afraid. Impossible. I am fear itself. I am... You're a bully, she interrupted. A cosmic bully who's gotten used to picking on species that couldn't fight back. But you've never faced humans before, have you? The entity's assault intensified, but the human fleet held formation. Ships that should have been vaporized continued returning fire, their crews working with the stubborn efficiency that had carried humanity from a single world to a galactic civilization. You want to know the difference between us and everyone else you've faced? Vasquez continued. They saw a god. We see a problem to be solved. On cue, the human fleet began executing Pattern Sigma, a battle formation developed specifically for this encounter. Ships scattered in seemingly random directions, their movement appearing chaotic to external observers. But Vasquez knew better. Her species had learned warfare from predators and prey alike, had turned survival itself into an art form. The entity struck again and again, but each time the humans adapted. When it phased between dimensions, they followed. When it unleashed psychic attacks, they countered with their own mental disciplines. When it tried to consume their ships, they fed it carefully prepared information viruses that began unraveling its consciousness from within. "What are you?" it screamed, its voice cracking across reality. "How do you resist?" "We're humans," Vasquez said simply. "We're the species that looked at the apex predators of our world and decided to hunt them for sport. We're the ones who saw an ocean and decided to cross it, saw a mountain and decided to climb it, saw the stars and decided to claim them." The entity was weakening now, its form becoming less stable. The information viruses were doing their work, fragmenting its consciousness, turning its own stolen power against itself. I was eternal." "Nothing's eternal," Vasquez said. "Everything ends. The only question is whether it ends with dignity or as a footnote in someone else's story." Dr. Kim looked up from her readings. "Captain, its psychic cohesion is failing. The viral attack is causing cascade failures in its consciousness matrix. How long? Minutes, maybe less." Vasquez opened a channel to the entity one final time. It was smaller now, its Jupiter-sized form condensing as its stolen power bled away into space. "You came here looking for worship," she said. "Instead, you found something your kind has never encountered before, a species that refuses to kneel. We don't worship our monsters. We name them, understand them, and then we put them down." The entity's form was breaking apart now, 3 billion years of accumulated power dissipating like smoke. Its final words came as barely a whisper across the void. "What was my name?" Vasquez looked at the readings, at the enemy that had destroyed countless civilizations, that had ended species beyond counting. An hour ago, it had been the most feared force in the known galaxy. "You don't get one," she said quietly. "Names are for things that matter, for things that leave something behind when they're gone. You were just hunger, empty, meaningless hunger, and now you're not even that. The entity, the thing that had never needed a name and would never receive, one collapsed into itself and vanished. Where it had been, space was finally quiet." Lieutenant Chen looked up from his sensor station. "All readings normal, Captain. Space is clear." "Set course for home," Vasquez ordered. "Send a message to command. Problem solved." As the human fleet turned away from the site of their victory, the silence left behind was different from all the others the entity had created. This wasn't the silence of death or submission. This was the silence of something that had simply been erased from existence, not defeated, not conquered, but dismissed as unworthy of remembrance. In that silence, humanity's message to the cosmos was clear. We are not prey. We are not servants. We are humans, and we bow to nothing.